Good morning, everyone. We will be getting started in just a few minutes. Make sure if you're wishing to speak that you sign in at the sign-in sheets. We have about 1 more minute for everyone to get signed in. Thanks.
All right, good morning. Let's get started. I'm Adria Berry. I'm the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority. Up here with me, I have Ashley Krall. She is our Director of Government Affairs at the OMMA. And I have Portia Riley, our Director of Communications. You'll notice that we don't have Barrett Brown up here with us this year. He has moved on in state service. He is working at the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. We're supportive, but we miss him. So if you're watching, Barrett, hello. And I'm sure that you wish you were here. So today's meeting is for public comment. So it's 9 a.m. Nope, it is 9 a.m. December 17th, 2024. We are here to receive public comment on proposed permanent rules to the Oklahoma Administrative Code. We're specifically looking at Title 442, Chapters 1 and 10 today. These rules implement the legislation listed on the handout that you all received. So if you have that in front of you, it's for your information. These rules implement this legislation. This meeting was posted in the notice of rulemaking intent and published in the Oklahoma Register and on the OMMA website. All right, so when you come up to this seat right here, you will state your name, an organization you represent, if you represent one. If not, just let us know you're representing yourself, and the rule that you'd like to comment on. As a reminder, this is all streaming live. This is also recorded for public records purposes. Speakers will have 3 minutes each. Portia will note when 3 minutes is up if anyone runs over their allotted time. Everyone who submits a comment, whether here today, in writing, or however you have submitted a comment to us, will receive a response in writing from us. That is an important part of this process, and we take it seriously. So everyone will receive a response in writing from us after we go back to the office and formulate those responses. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get started. So when I call your name, please come up to this seat and state your name and organization as a reminder. All right, first, number 1 on page 1 is Jed Green.
There we go. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Good morning, OMMA. Great to see everyone. I cannot say how much I miss Barrett Brown and his dry wit in these. It always brought a certain entertainment value to these, so he will be missed. Where I'd like to start is simply commenting on the rules process as a whole. I greatly appreciate the effort that was put into the rulemaking, especially things such as red highlights in the actual draft. That really makes it a lot easier to run through, so on and so forth. That's a great improvement before. Y'all also really stepped your game up on noting, hey, here are the ones that we changed, go key in on that. You know, that's great. So I do appreciate that. I thought that was an improvement. My comment, 2 comments today. One generally pertains to page 81, which is somewhere, I believe, in 10.8.1, but the comment is affecting the rule impact statement for Chapter 10 as provided. In the rule impact statement, it notes that a number of the rules that OMMA kept tight to what was in law, generally speaking, I find that to be correct. You've always done a pretty good job of that. That costs associated were generally related to the impact of those laws. However, there is one big exception to that, and I believe that needs to be addressed. I'm going to hit it on an overview. I believe there are others today that could probably get into the details on that should they choose to. It's real simple. We're talking about the rule impact economically on the labs and then everyone downstream from there. You know, I'm very fully aware of what the process for OMMA has been to attempt to get a lab up and going. Obviously, our state as a whole has struggled with laboratory testing for a variety of things. I digress on that point. It's not an easy thing to do. Taking lab setup takes time, it takes money, and so what my concern here is that there was nothing addressed in the rule impact statement on what that cost and time frame would be to the actual laboratories themselves. I hear things anecdotally of, hey, we need a $500,000 machine, $1 million machine, we've got to train, we've got to get set up. The concern here is that with OMMA just now getting on board, the lab is still not in place. I'm not saying it's not, we'll just see, but y'all are going to need training time. You need those things, and if it's taken 3 years there, now this is coming to the labs. You know, some of these machines have a far lead time, and so what my concern here is, especially with the newer pesticide list that has been added in there. Of course, we're #1 advocates of consumer safety. I'm not going to drill into specific ones. I think there are a couple that we might benefit from having a here's what's allowed type of a deal. There are some on the list that, you know, could be. The concern here, however, is these labs have got to get this equipment in. It's going to be a certain economic cost, you know, and the way the rules would set up time-wise is, and what's in there is that OMMA gets set up, they're ready to go, but these guys most likely are not. And then you see what I'm saying there? Yeah, so there was a big hole in the rule impact statement. And that is something that, you know, should be taken seriously under Title 75.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment, Jed. All right, our next speaker is Lee Bayless.
All right, good morning. Happy Tuesday to you. Lee Bayless. I represent my own grower license, Dr. Big Bud. Gladly, since 2018, I've been a registered licensee for going on my 7th year. I've started testing products in 2018 before it was required. I was using metric a year and a half before it was required. I had my certificate of occupancy 4 years before it was required. And the reason I mention this is that I've been a by-the-book grower. Even though I'm probably the smallest grower in the entire state, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I've passed every inspection, never had any citations or license problems. But this year, I'm going through a bit of a difficulty on my renewal. And since you're talking about renewals, my recent renewal was done on May the 13th of this year. And it was approved using my property deed that my wife and I are listed as joint tenants on, and was issued on May 13th for this year. Well, I put my renewal in 2 months ago, and they've rejected my grower license application, and I couldn't figure out why, but it said that they couldn't verify ownership of the land. So when I called the compliance department, 3 different people have told me, well, if your wife's name is on the property deed, she also has to be listed as an owner on your business license. But nowhere in the state statutes does that show that that's a requirement. It does show under the 10-5.3.3 that you have to submit an attestation, which I did, and you also have to supply a document of ownership that's verified. So I've owned my land for 20 years. Filed at the county clerk of Oklahoma County since December of 2004. So if my license was verified in May of this year, how can 4 months later they not use the same document and verify my application? If I try to add my wife to my sole proprietorship, I've got to redo everything for the business licensing part of it, get a new OBN number, have to pay a new application fee. But when you're a registered owner as a joint tenant, according to Oklahoma real estate law, you legally own the property, equally sharing ownership with the adjoining tenants, meaning you have the right to use and possess the entire property as if you were the sole owner. So I just don't understand why there's an invisible rule that's been put in place that's not anywhere in the statutes that requires. I could see if there were 10 people listed on a property deed and they weren't related, but when you're listed strictly as a husband-wife joint tenants, that should be verifiable. I've also got my last 7 years of property tax returns from our property tax files. It's on from the county tax assessor. I'm going to go back in and refile my renewal application today with the same documentation, and I'm hoping in the next 90 days that you guys will take a look at this and see why that can't be maybe an exemption as long as you're listed as husband-wife joint tenants. I also noticed late last night that my license was just rejected for not supplying a certificate of compliance. But in May, this handout you put says that certificate of compliance is no longer required, but that rejection shows up saying I didn't send that to them. I did send them my certificate of occupancy. So thank you for your service. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We are going to hold strict to the 3 minutes. If you're wrapping up, we'll kind of give a little bit of leeway to get wrapped up. But thank you for your comment, Mr. Bayless. And our next speaker is Jeremy Woods.
Ma'am, I brought copies of this. Do you want me to leave it with you?
Morning, ladies. I'm Jeremy Woods with Wild West Compliance. I'm here today to talk to you about 442-10-8-1, Section 5 on the pesticide residue. So my concern is we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing according to state legislation or by your own regulations for the labs. Now, that did change in your regulation side August 16th for when you do get your state lab up and running, which is great. We need the state lab up and running. We need to keep these labs in check because the labs are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Not all labs. Some labs are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I'm just asking, can we not change the level limits from 0.02 is what you want to move it down to, from a 0.2 and a 0.4? The FFDCA, the FIFRA, and the EPA already has guidelines for residual solvents. They also have a 10-to-1 safety factor already built in. Just take some time and do some research on it. The labs are going to have to spend $400,000 to change equipment out. If they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing now, how are they going to be able to do that? I know for a fact we've turned in COAs that is not correct from labs. That stuff's still getting transferred. So it's not about the patient safety. Otherwise, that stuff would have been locked up already. I know that for a fact. We turned in COAs in August. November 25th, I was doing a metric audit for another dispensary. The same COA popped up. So that product was not tested correctly, but it's still being allowed to be transferred. We've got to put a stop to it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Woods. Our next speaker is Stephen Blackburn.
Good morning. Okay, my comments are going to be on the pre-packaging. So is there going to be different labeling requirements with pre-packaging than there was with bulk flour? Because I know there's some slight differences of labeling requirements between a dispensary to a patient than there is from a grower to a dispensary. And now that the grower is going directly to the patient, will those extra labeling requirements need to be taken on by the grower? Also, will each size of package need to have their individual COAs with final form testing in place? So will an eighth, since you're doing the final form before you actually get it tested, will you need a different test for your eighth ounce packages and your quarter ounce packages? I know that's being asked a lot. Also, could we please add the each function and metric as we go into prepackaged flour? It will help with, if not, bud tenders are going to put it in as one, because every other thing that's prepackaged is sold by the each or the unit. And that's going to make their accounting off as far as weight if they're not used to having to put in 3.5. And then the last thing that I would like to comment on is it may be beneficial if, when it comes to the pesticides, if we actually came up with an approved list of pesticides. I know other states that do that, but that will keep this from having to every couple of years go back and add more and more and more banned pesticides. If we actually had a list that's approved, I believe California, Oregon, and Colorado have approved lists, and I think it'll save time over the long run. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Blackburn. Next is Summer Whiteman.
Hi, and good morning to all of my fellow industry adventurers, and thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you all here today. My name is Summer, and I was here back in February of this very same year for the previous open comment period, and after that last session, this industry has only continued to see an avalanche of disturbing and inefficient changes. The consistent changes being bombardingly rampaged upon commercial licensing holders coming at us from across multiple state agencies. That was the very thing I stood up against back in February, and yet the excessive rate of change has only continued to surmount against the odds of survival as locally owned businesses. For me personally, keeping up with the ridiculous rate of change has diminished the quality of my own life as well as my family's. It has taken away an ungodly amount of time that I will never get back, and time invested that I truly believe is no longer worth the effort. This opportunity was supposed to improve the quality of our state's cannabis community, yet we have consistently seen from OMMA and their fellow state agencies the blatant disconnect between the law and the promise of 788, as we have watched what we voted for in 2018 fall into a blundering abyss at the hands of our government and bad actors. I am here to remind everyone that we the people had cannabis long before we gave the government our 788. This is the reminder that we do not need them, they need us, and they need our tax dollars. They need us to have their jobs. Our jobs in this community existed long before theirs did, yet they have consistently failed to nurture and actuate integration for those who transitioned into the legalities and professional experience of the cannabis legalization. They have deliberately stripped the opportunity right out from under those who deserved to be in this industry, those who were integrating from pre-788 cannabis culture into post-788 cannabis culture. Our government does not know how to read the room because cannabis culture is a space that prior to 2018 they attacked. And it is obvious that attacking us is the only pattern of action that they know how to take within this space. We have watched conspiracies turn to rational theories as rumors such as OMMA and communing parties having a secret agenda to depopulate the commercial cannabis industry by a large percentage, only for that rumor to be brought into light in truth from a slew of unnecessary and vicious attacks against commercial license holders, whether it be by unorganized COO rollouts or any other maleficent affair found somewhere blurred between the lines. I am not here today to say a word to the ears of the government or this panel before us, but I am here today to speak to the true body, the people. I have a strong gift in my ability to put words together in the act of storytelling. What has happened here in our state over the last 5 years is nothing short of historical. There is a story to be told, and I want to help you tell yours. My email address is here and there for anyone who has felt wronged by either our government or greedy trader pirates scalping the industry. There are big stories to tell, and there is history to be captured here. Please reach out, connect with me, pass my contact to someone in need, and let's get your story, our story, documented. We will have the option to present this in print or transition the collection of stories into a visual series. More than anything, I want you guys to know that there is someone out here willing to hear your story and willing to hear it with a heart full of understanding, compassion, and a deliberate desire to help your voice be heard. If you have felt unheard or misunderstood anywhere along this journey, please reach out to me. Thank you guys so much. Good luck to everybody.
All right, thank you for your comment, Ms. Whiteman. Next, we have Tracy Turner. We have Tracy Turner.
Yeah. And then the next one, I can't remember if I get it together.
Yep. I have examples here for OMMA just in case you guys need them. This is my mom, Tracy Turner. She owns the Groovy Cats, and I'm her daughter, Kat. I'm here to represent the patients and my family dispensary. Like everybody else in here, we've jumped through the hoops, and we got everything else. I'm a patient first, and I'm here to help run my family's dispensary. I also help run Oklahoma's Cancer FICO program. And here's a few reasons why we don't need prepackaged cannabis flower. Our patients who come to us are already sick, especially our cancer patients. I can't consciously sell them something that I know can make them more sick. Number two, how do you know we're going to make them more sick with this, you ask? Well, that's because we have educated ourselves with multiple growers from this state on how this plant works. We understand how it grows, cures, and dries. We have also educated ourselves on how to store it properly because of what is called the rainbow life the flower has in the cannabis plant. Not allowing this plant to properly dry and cure can cause mildew and possibly mold. This can continue to grow and make more mildew or mold by not burping the flower and allowing it to breathe, as people say, through the rainbow life. As if someone has bugs and webbing in their flower and then you prepackage it and it just sits there, patient is going to get that here in just a couple weeks when I hand it over to them. 3, this is unfair for all the mom and pop growers for their pocketbooks and their efforts. Shoving everyone to spend more money on trash to make something worse that is here to help patients is insane. Some of these growers take time and effort and pride into growing some of the most beautiful and wonderful medicine, and seeing it go into a bag that sucks the life out of it is so ridiculous, especially seeing how proud Oklahomans are of their work. Cannabis itself is like fruits and veggies and herbs and spices. They all have their own terpenes and flavonoids, This is what make up the aromas of these flowers, herbs, spices, and veggies, which is what help in many medicinal forms of these items. Having everything prepackaged will not only degrade the cannabis itself, but have but it will also have all of your patients going back to the black market, which they cannot properly inspect their product, and this is what we are trying to stop. I understand that people are allowed samples in smell jars, but do you know how long it takes for that one bud sitting in all the light all day and all night and the plastic to lose its smell and integrity of the bud? Patients are never going to know what they're actually getting or smelling. Why are you adding more work to businesses when our questions right now that we have can't be answered? OMMA and narcotics can't respond or even help everybody get on the same page or even simply take our questions into consideration. So say that these pre-packages to make our lives easier, it's to make your lives easier, and that's not we here as businesses and patients here of Oklahoma are here for. There should always, always, always be an open line of communication and data and education from growers and processors to the dispensaries. This is how we are able to educate our patients and help our patients learn. Never shut this communication off. She's got a couple things to say. I have a couple more, so I'll print this off and leave it for you.
Just wanted to say that pharmacies get their medicines in bulk and give them to the patients in a smaller container at the pharmacy. And if I demand my pharmacist to count my medication, he has to in front of me. It's no different than what we do at a dispensary. Our patients can see what we do before we prepackage it and put it in a bag. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Turner and Ms. Wilbanks, thank you for your comments on House Bill 3361 that passed last legislative session that we will be implementing. Next is Mary Lane Porter.
I'm gonna take it up there. Yeah.
Could you say who's after Mary?
I'm sorry?
Could you announce who's after Mary so we can prepare?
Okay, after Mary is Christy O'Neill.
Hi guys, I'm Mary Lane Porter. I'm with Holiday Cannabis. I've been in the industry for years, and I've, of course, like all you guys, have been through a lot. We've all been through a lot together. I was debating whether or not to talk about this because I know that the legislature passes rules and that OMMA has to follow them, and it just is the way it is, and we have to figure it out from there. I'm bringing this forward now because it does have to relate to House Bill 3361. Back in 2021, Representative Fettgetter came to the company I was working for to talk about creating a prepackaged company. In 2022, he had authored House Bill 3754, which was the original prepackaging bill. I had told Senator Garvin and Representative Dollins about this, and I was glad to see that the bill had gone dead in session, which was nice. But then I saw House Bill 3361 come forward without his authorship on there. And of course it has since passed. I know there is only so much OMMA can do once that's been passed and you guys are having to deal with it and then therefore put the rules and we all have to deal with it as well. So my question is there any way to mitigate this type of potential conflict of interest in the future, even if it's just transparency, stating the companies that certain legislatures and senators, if they're passing such a bill, stating which companies they're a part of outside of the Congress to show if there's any potential muddy waters there with such things. And if OMMA could somehow help us with this, I know we would all very, very much like transparency in this so that we know who to talk to. Because again, I know OMMA can only do so much. As you guys know, the legislature passed this. This was not OMMA's doing. OMMA now has to do this, and we now have to follow it. So is there any way that we can all work together to find transparency and help mitigate these in the future so that if we see it come by, we know who to talk to, we can get it taken care of before it happens, rather than just being handed the bag? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Porter, and your question. And next we have Christy O'Neill, and after Christy O'Neill will be Matthew Phillips.
Good morning. I kind of have a few things to say on what she said. We had a similar problem with the bond bill that was passed. It was said in the hearing that it would only cost $200 or $300, and And it turns out that the lowest price we can get right now is about $2,300 overall. So I would like to also see some verification that people making the rules aren't benefiting from the rules, as far as that goes. And then the other gentleman who was talking about the land ownership, I'm working with 147 farms that we help with applications for, and we're getting some of them coming back for land ownership that showing that they have to have a bond. We're getting some back showing that they were rejected for the certificate of compliance that we no longer need. I'm sitting on 16 rejections right now for different things on different applications, so they're not uniform. They're not being sent back for the same thing every time. On my license, I've used the same GPS coordinates since the beginning, and I was rejected twice for the GPS coordinates that I literally got from my county management people. So it just delays the process, and we're not able to do things in the next step without getting these licenses pushed through. My big concern is, and I know it doesn't have to do with this, but over the past few months, we've noticed a difference in the inspections. In the past, when we have told the inspectors that it's our personal property, they have not pushed to inspect it. I don't know if something has changed in the rules, the policies, but I know on 3 of my last inspections that my farms had, the site plans specified that those were personal property, it was personal storage, and they are being forced to let the inspectors see them even though it is told in advance that those are personal things. It's not that they're just changing it on the day of the inspection. It is part of their OMMA packet that they have to submit. So if I have something that's personal property, I would like to believe that the agencies, unless I've done something wrong, allow my stuff to be personal and private. So that's it.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. O'Neill. We have Matthew Phillips next, and then after Matthew Phillips will be Justin Wood.
Good morning. Thank you guys for allowing us to be here this morning. My name is Matthew, and I'm the CEO of OMMA Compliance Testing Lab. I'm here today to voice my strong opposition to the proposed expansion of the pesticide analyte list from 13 to 60. While protecting patient safety should be top priority, this move is premature and misguided, given the authority's lack of enforcement of the current rules. Today, more than half of the state's labs are failing to detect pesticides already included in the existing list. From using improper equipment to not following the state's quality control requirements. This lack of action by OMMA sends a troubling message. Rules are only for those who choose to follow them. This unfairly penalizes compliant businesses while allowing non-compliant operators to undermine the system with little consequences. For patients, this lack of enforcement is more than just a regulatory failure, it's a betrayal of trust. Patients are being told their medicine is safe, yet the reality is far from it. Without proper enforcement, the current and proposed rules endanger both patients and the integrity of our industry. Expanding the pesticide list without first addressing these critical enforcement gaps does not enhance safety. It merely widens the scope of failure. I strongly urge OMMA to prioritize enforcing the rules already in place before adding new ones. Anything less risks undermining confidence in the program and the protections it claims to provide, further hurting good labs. We cannot wait for the state's quality control lab. We've been waiting for many, many years. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for your comment, Mr. Phillips. And we have Justin Wood. After Justin Wood will be Bree Truitt.
Good morning. My name is Justin Wood. I run Choctaw Processing. I've been in the cannabis industry for 15 years in multiple states from Washington to Oregon to California. I have a question regarding pre-pack and classifications of products that are going into pre-pack, and I have questions for you that I'd love to get answered. First one, I'd love the OMMA's definition of what is live resin, what is cured resin, and what is distillate. And what are those, if it's going to be applicable by a COA that's put on the packaging, it's going to dictate what goes into it. If we're going to put QR codes like other states do on packaging that shows the biomass that goes into the processes, so we can dictate if it's a live resin, a cured resin, or if it's a distillate. And what the OMMA is going to do to go against the people that are false advertising, selling live resin products as cured, selling distillate products as live resin, et cetera, et cetera. It depreciates the value of everything that I do, a couple of my friends do in extractors, cannabis labs as well. I have high grade over here, I have OKCTL over here. I manufacture for quite literally the top echelon in the state, and we are putting out products that are depreciated in value because other people aren't playing by the rules. So I implore you for your help. I'm an asset. I'm here to help. I've been doing this for a very long time. I manufacture cannabis equipment as well. I'm a shareholder in a very large company. I have labs that are going up in New York, Florida, and New Jersey. I'm here to help. You guys don't know who I am, but I know who you are. So thank you for your time. I'd love to be an asset.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wood. And Bree Truitt next. After Bree will be Brandy Frisbee.
Good morning. Bree Truitt with Lux Cannabis. I would like to comment on the proposed rules in general. As you probably know, many growers are not set up for prepackaging. As a processor, we are set up for packaging and can offer it as a service to growers. The problem is the packaged product would not be able to be returned to the grower for them to sell. This poses issues of storing prepackaged cannabis, transporting it for the grower, and then getting proceeds back to the grow. In order to simplify the process, we should be able to transfer packaged flower back to the grow it came from. I noticed you did add returns to your proposed rules, but it says that anything returned is waste and has to be disposed of. I disagree with this. The original licensee should be the one to determine if a return is waste or usable or can be processed further into a new product. And I still have an issue with not being able to put a sticker on top of a sticker. Now we have to add the date tested and the date packaged to labels starting June 1st. The time spent removing old labels and relabeling is a waste. Sometimes the packaging is damaged when removing labels, so perfectly good packaging is being wasted. We really should be able to put a sticker on top of another sticker, as long as the information shown is compliant. The rules state it's okay for labs to use metric to maintain COAs, but all other license holders have to obtain and maintain copies of COAs for 7 years. If test results in metric are sufficient for labs, they should be sufficient for all license holders. I don't agree with the addition of timely submission of license renewals. Who does it benefit to make license holders submit 60 days early to remain active during renewal? And then OMMA has 90 days to process the renewal, not including holidays or weekends. It almost seems like the OMMA is trying to get rid of licenses or stop them from operating legally with this rule. The problem with processing renewals has less to do with when it was submitted and more to do with the lack of timely processing by OMMA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Ms. Truitt. We have Brandy Frisbee next, and then we have Shane Schreiber.
Good morning. I'm Brandy Frisbee Ratzliff. I'm the owner of OK Canna Consulting. First, I want to thank everyone for coming and commenting, as I thought I had 5 minutes today, and you guys have addressed a lot of my concerns, so thank you so much. A couple of things. First, I want to talk about the licensing portal itself. I feel that if we add a couple definitions, it would improve some things. First, adding the functionality to add multiple points of contact in the licensing portal. A point of contact would be defined as an individual that the authority may communicate with regarding queries related to the license for which they are designated. Furthermore, the portal should also accommodate the designation of an authorized representative. This would refer to an individual empowered to make decisions and implement changes concerning the license on behalf of its owner. Next, pertaining to the inventory tracking system, I would like to address a couple things. Currently, there are 4 options for available roles when adding a user: owner, employee, manager, or financial contact. I would like to suggest the addition of a new role, or possibly a couple: compliance officer, auditor, possibly salesperson, so that these roles would better accommodate the individuals whose responsibilities do not align with the existing categories. Also, to talk about what Mr. Blackburn said, Metric does not give us the opportunity to package weight-based items into units. There are many dispensaries currently that would like to improve their inventory tracking through pre-packaging, and it makes it impossible for dispensaries to do that because we're just not able to. Also, the implications of implementing pre-packaging are going to be significant, and growers need time to train and adapt to these regulations, so we'd really like to see that functionality. Moving on, we are witnessing a troubling trend in which vast amounts of out-of-state distillate are flooding into the Oklahoma market. Liters of distillate are being introduced. Processors are beginning to manipulate this product by adding small amounts of metric concentrated extracts. Our licensed hazardous processors who have invested time and resources into creating safe, compliant, and high-quality concentrates within the borders of Oklahoma are suffering as a result of these practices. I know that the implementation can be far more challenging than the solutions that I am suggesting, but I think that a simple solution to this would just be to implement a regulation requiring that all distillate used in Oklahoma products can be traced back to a licensed hazardous processor within the state. I want to express my gratitude again for everybody that has taken the time to come and speak about your troubles. This is a difficult industry for all of us on this side, and OMMA, I know this is difficult for you. Director Berry, a special thanks to you. You were the 4th director appointed in 3 years, and you were the first that I found to make any tangible progress towards enforcement and regulation, and for that I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Frisbee. We have Shane Shriver, I believe that's what it says, and then next will be Becky McKinn, I believe. If I messed up your name, I apologize.
Hi, my name is Shane Shriver. I am the owner of Dunder Mifflin LLC and the owner of Life of Riley LLC, located in Norman, Oklahoma and in Washington, Oklahoma. I have some issues in regards to the application process. I am one of the businesses that was negatively affected by the severe weather that happened on April 19th, 2023, and OMMA reached out to us on April 20th asking us to identify ourselves, and at that point we did. We were hit by an F4 tornado. It completely leveled my processing facility. And at that time, I was forced to find and secure thousands of cannabis products in an open field without any support from OMMA, electricity, or local government. There is no process or plan in place for businesses that have been destroyed like this. And I would just simply ask you, if your car was hit by a tornado, would you expect to lose your driver's license? When my business was hit by a tornado, for some reason that became the reason that I couldn't renew my application. Now, I have 2 applications that have been submitted to the state that I'd like to bring your attention to, and these directly impact the new certificate of occupancy laws in this way. Now, I've provided a certificate of occupancy to OMMA that was issued by the city of Norman, and it was wrongfully rejected. I have a letter here specifically from the Greg Clark with the city of Norman, stating that he has the authority, he's the authority having jurisdiction, and a new certificate of occupancy is not required. Now, for some reason, OBNDD has accepted the timed state stamped letter that he wrote me in regards to this, stating that I did have a certificate of occupancy, but OMMA fails to accept that letter. Now, I've emailed you guys starting almost a year ago, providing you with this signed letter from the certificate of the City of Norman, showing that I have this documentation, and you've rejected this application 3 times. Now, since then, the City of Norman Legal Department has reached out to OMMA, and you finally provided them with clarification that this license would be set back to active because I did have a certificate of occupancy as of December 2nd, 2023, and there's no reason that this license should have been rejected. Now, in regards to my other facility that doesn't have a certificate of occupancy because it was destroyed in a tornado and you're aware of this, why didn't anybody reach out to us? Why wasn't there any support given to us? What was I supposed to do with 50,000 metric products in a field? You put me from a licensed business owner to a licensed felon, and you gave me no guidance. And now you're taking away the other license when I have obtained the certificate of occupancy? What's the point of fighting to get another one when you won't accept the one that I have? Thank you for your time.
Bless you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shriver, and we can follow up after this meeting if you could stay for a moment. Ms.
Kim.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that while I realize y'all's job is difficult, I do feel like, and I would like to see you guys take responsibility in interpreting the new rules and regulations that come out. There are so many times we call to get clarification and we're told, ask your lawyer. Every lawyer will interpret it differently. You guys are the interpreter. You guys are the ones that are making us follow these rules and regulations. So we need to be following them your way and not the way we want to interpret them. And also hope that the pre-pack bill, something happens to that, because that's going to be a real hardship. I don't remember the guy that said he had the real small girl, I'm probably as small as you. And now I'm understanding that I might have to pre-pack way in advance. Instead of my thought right off the bat was, well, when my little dispensary says give me 5/8 grams, I'll do it at that time so that my flour stays fresh. But not the way you guys are looking at interpreting it, and I hope y'all will turn that around. Because I feel like you guys are our spokesperson to our regulations and to the legislator, and you're not. You just say, oh, well, whatever they come up with is what we'll do. You never, or I never hear of you guys going to them and saying that's a stupid rule. Why are y'all trying to pass something like this? I'd like to see more of that coming from you so that we feel like we're truly supported by you guys, since we are paying y'all a lot of money to stay in business, a lot of money. As well as, I hope that somewhere in this line, all these other areas like the OWRB, the Water Board, the DEQ, and all of those start coming to some of these meetings, because, you know, we find out later on, oh, we got to have all these other permits, and everybody's raising the price for, just because you say I grow cannabis. Thank you.
All right, we have Cole Alleman. And after Cole will be Ryan Christ.
Hello, my name is Cole Allman. I'm the Medical Laboratory Director at Oklahoma Compliance Testing Laboratory. I'd like to talk about 10-8-5, C2 and 3. Those 2 sections specifically address the state's QA laboratory equipment standards, and then the second one's going to be SOP for extraction and testing. As we implement additional pesticides, as a laboratory, we're wondering where will we be able to locate the state's standard operating procedure, recommended equipment list, recommended extraction solvents, recommended columns. My understanding is that state statute 427.17a requires that is provided to us. And we would just like to know where can we access that information. If we're going to expand patient safety, you guys should be aware that the state mandated equipment for pesticides, you cannot perform that analysis of that equipment. Changes will have to be made there to allow for the GC triple quads for, I believe, 4 or 5 of the analytes. And also that there's a tremendous limitation when it comes to polarity switching. Safety, just because the analyte is on the C of A, doesn't mean that all triple quads will be able to detect them. When you get into polarity switching, what you're going to see is that not all of them can switch back and forth at the same speed, and this will result in false negatives. The presence of pesticides will not be detected by all laboratories in the state of Oklahoma, and it's a risk that you guys should be made aware of in advance. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Ryan Christ, then after Ryan will be Brandon Mosley.
Good morning, I'm Ryan Christ, Lab Director at High Grade Labs. I'm also going to address 442 Section 10-8-5 on pesticides residue. Before getting into that, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be here and just encourage all of us in this room, as well as OMMA, to continue to work together in the future to better the industry as a whole. We have a lot of valuable insight that we can provide, and it would really go a long ways to our livelihoods and our businesses if we can work together on future issues. Regarding the proposed pesticides changes, specifically, the action limits that are proposed are extremely low and are not this low in any other state or country's pesticides cannabis testing legislature. The action limits being at about 20 parts per billion is basically the bottom line of what you can achievably quantify, which means that when we're trying to introduce this new pesticides list, it's almost a pass-fail. There's no real way to reliably and accurately quantify these compounds, these many compounds in the cannabis matrix at those concentrations. On top of that, one of the other things that I would propose be addressed is that the current regulations regarding the laboratory quality control samples, specifically the LCS, requiring all analytes to be present at or near the action limit, is extremely difficult to do. We've reached out to the president of Emerald Scientific, who's a leader in the cannabis industry for proficiency testing, and she advocated that a lot of these compounds do not behave together when you start to mix them together. And that's going to cause exacerbated effects when it's in a cannabis matrix, which means that getting reliable quality control samples that pass and can verify a batch as, reliably tested would be extremely difficult, not only difficult, but near impossible to do reliably and accurately. And then the last point, which Cole also mentioned, is that there was no update to the instrumentation that's allowed. It currently says only LC triple quads are allowed. And as Cole stated, for some of these compounds, the ability to use a GC triple quad is absolutely necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christ. Now we have Brandon Mosley. After Brandon Mosley will be Mr. Miriam Biggie.
Good morning. I'm Brandon Mosley. I've been in the analytical laboratory industry in some fashion or other for 25 years. So am I an expert in this field? Absolutely. As usual, you guys have put the cart before the horse without any scientific data or forethought. I understand that patient safety is of utmost concern, and that's what we're here for, to try to enforce or improve patient safety by accurate analytical testing. This has already kind of been touched on. I'm going to give you one example. I've worked with almost all these compounds at some point in time in my career. We'll talk about nailed. If you guys are familiar with it, it's in the rules. It's one that's I'm just going to use it for an example. I just did a quick Google search. The boiling point of nailed is reported as 110 C. It goes on to say it decomposes at high temperature, so the boiling point is often stated as decomposes. 110 C. One other quick Google search as to typical nebulizer gas temperature for LC-MS-MS, which is the required instrumentation for this proposed list of pesticides, is typically around 300 to 400 degrees C. So one compound, for example, that will never be determined by LC-MS, as you guys have the rules written, is nailed. I could go on. I know the 3 minutes is going to limit my time, so I've got a couple of things I want to touch on. You guys say the state lab is supposed to be functional by February, is what we're told. Is that going to be an accredited laboratory? Okay. anxious to see this happen. Can't wait. I would beg you guys to table the proposed pesticide list until the state lab is functional and they can demonstrate that these 60 pesticides that you guys have listed can truly be determined prior to trying to enforce and make the rest of the state-run laboratories analyze this stuff before they're even functional. As it's already been stated by Ryan, the QC requirements for this number of compounds at the levels that you guys are requiring, it ain't ever happening. We will never send a sample out the door meeting these requirements, ever. I would recommend implementing something similar to what the EPA does if you're going to use this vast number of compounds, such as 60. The EPA uses what's called system performance check compounds, SPCCs. They're very familiar to everybody over the DEQ. I would say maybe visit with some of those guys about maybe implementing some type of QC requirement similar to what's required by the EPA. Like for semivols, for example, there's somewhere between 12 and 15 SPCCs that are monitored that prove the instrumentation is operating efficiently and effectively and within QC constraints. The sheer fact that you guys are requiring all 60 at the level you're requiring them for, it just isn't going to happen. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for your comment, Mr. Mosley. And we have Miriam Biggie.
Hello. I'm here, I represent Havard Industries as well as being a patient. I know you guys' job is not easy to regulate. Every time you draw a line, you're pretty much stuck to who's going to follow the rule and who's not, and then to enforce that is almost impossible, especially without transparency at its core. My biggest thing as a patient is not addressing where the samples come from, if they actually represent the batch, that it is actually like, hey, this is actually what's being tested. And I get that that's probably why you guys went with the pre-packaging, but even then that still doesn't really address the issue because you really don't know who packaged what and when they packaged it and if it actually is representative of the sample sent into the laboratory. I don't know what an answer to that is. Maybe a possibility of body cams with no liability to who is drawing the sample from the batch. That maybe that's a suggestion. The QA lab, which other people have addressed on, I think if the QA lab is going to be the hammer and it's going to be the judge, then it needs to lead by example, especially if it's being publicly funded. I mean, there's just so much lack of trust because of what happened prior with the financing from the state. It almost, not saying that's the intent, but it almost looks like possibly nefarious to some extent of some sort of money grab from somebody because when you have a lack of transparency from what was financed prior and then given away and now it's a private laboratory. I don't know what the intent was, but it just doesn't look good. So if you're going to step into a new QA lab, you need to lead by example and showing transparency, in my opinion, from A to Z. If you don't do that, then I don't think it's going to be rough to have integrity with any of it. We filed a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act from like 2021, or we filed it last year. It's almost been a year. We never received any information back on what the external proficiency tests were that even I think the QA lab at that time was involved in. None of that information was ever given over. We never even replied to an email, nothing, which then again doesn't look good in general on OMMA or literally the whole integrity of this whole system. Addressing deviations, I understand you guys are standardizing protocols, but if there is the human error aspect of, hey, these are our protocols and this is how we're running things, but then what's done behind closed doors or how samples are actually treated is pretty much impossible to police or judge. Like, oh yeah, we're totally following our protocols, and then evaporation, you leave the cap off, let methanol evaporate. Now all of a sudden your concentrations are higher, you have higher THC now than what, and you supposedly followed the protocols. It doesn't really address these issues, especially when you have gentlemen that tried to follow the rules, and then it looks like you guys are making it more difficult for them to stay in compliance whenever. Got you. I think letting the bad actors run wild, which I don't know exactly the way to police, has created problems for honest players, like this gentleman over here and some of these other people that are playing. Thank you for your time.
All right, Jeffrey Havard, and then next we have Dalton Hilburn, I think.
All right, my name is Jeffrey Havard. I am the lab manager at Havard Industries. Thank you for letting us come and speak with you today. Essentially, I want to say that we had a lot of points that we wanted to address that were covered by quite a few other individuals, such as like instrumentation, being able to use multiple types of instrumentation to try to attack this pesticide panel, like the expanded pesticides that are being suggested, and also issues with the QA lab, such as being accredited or having the experience to be able to like police other labs as well. But the main thing I wanted to talk about today was kind of our objections to the expansion of the pesticide list overall due to the relevance of the compounds that are on there, and also the logic that was used to try to determine which pesticide should be on there. We've heard speculation that maybe this list came from Canada, but we don't really find that that's relevant to our region. So we actually did a study where we went to multiple grow supply stores, we went to hardware stores, Tractor Supply, various places that people could be picking up different types of pesticide compounds that are available in our region in Oklahoma. So we surveyed 105 different products, and we essentially created a list of 19 that are actually relevant. And some of them are found in the current list of pesticides we're checking for now. Some of them are included in this expanded pesticide list. And then there's actually 3 of them we found that were not on the list at all, but that are actually available to purchase. And one of them was actually a potent carcinogen, and it's not even included whatsoever. So essentially, we're proposing that we look again at this pesticide list, maybe look at seeing if other places can be surveyed and create a list that's relevant towards Oklahoma, and basically reject the list of 60 that are there currently. Once again, to just kind of reiterate, if we were to try to test these 60 pesticides, we have still this issue of instrumentation being forced to be using LCMS, when we would also need to be using GCMS or other equipment to properly measure all of these compounds, and being forced to use certain methods, and the equipment is just not really feasible to properly do this. So if you have any questions about like this list or our report, please come find us afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Havard. Dalton, I think it's Hilburn, or Hilbun. Okay, sorry about that.
Hey everyone, my name is Dalton Hilburn. I'm a senior technician at Havard Industries, one of the cannabis testing labs here in the state. I'm here today to address multiple parts of the laboratory testing regulations of the proposed permanent rules and tell you why I'm opposed to it. These rules pertain to the specifications of equipment and protocols that have to be used in the testing labs. While we understand that specifying equipment and protocols is an attempt to control the lab-to-lab variability, this isn't addressing some major factors that are external to equipment that cannot be fixed by specifying equipment and methods. There are many different types of testing equipment available and many different ways to prepare samples for testing. Laws that tell us how to do this not only limit what we can do, but may actually be worse for the industry. The way samples are prepared, the samples that are provided to the lab, can cause variability, especially when they are not representative of the batch. Also, unrecorded deviations from lab protocols or calculations post-testing will never be addressed, and human error cannot be fixed by specifying equipment. Laboratory proficiency testing is already required by the law to ensure that labs are getting the correct answer. This accounts for any variation in methods and equipment, and any attempt to specify the type of equipment or protocols we must use are just killing innovation. Better ways of testing are always evolving. This rule only adds unnecessary expenses to an already financially demanding industry. For example, the regulations state that only LCMS is allowed to test pesticides. However, many studies use both GCMS and LCMS to test for pesticides, since they are both good at testing for certain types of analytes. Limiting us to a certain type of equipment hinders the lab's ability to offer accurate testing and is detrimental to public safety. Please remove the equipment standards from all legislation. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment, Mr. Hilburn. Next, we have Summer Parker.
Good morning. How are you guys doing? All right, my name is Summer Parker, and I represent Patients for Safe Access. As a patient, I strongly disagree with House Bill 3361, which pertains to pre-packed medical marijuana products. This bill will have an impact on the quality of our medicine. There is an increased risk of mold and yeast, along with not being able to see the products or smell it, kind of like Kat was saying. Imagine going to the grocery store to pick produce that is prepackaged in packaging where you cannot pick it up and inspect it for quality or ripeness of your preference. You must trust that what you are purchasing is what they say it is, right? As we know, there are already many manufacturers of our medical cannabis products that expect us to trust with blind faith. And when we have the trust is earned, blind faith is not, right? Blind faith has proven that we are getting poisoned by products, contaminated products that have made it into our market, whether it's by nefarious intent or completely by accident. That part is not to dispute today. What is out there, we have found and proven, has contaminated products in it. We've tested it in multiple labs. We've gotten the same results. You know what I mean? So we need to do something about that. We need to get that taken care of. I understand a lot of people here spoke on the pesticides, and I know the equipment issues and all those types of things. But if we don't do something to protect our patients, Colorado, California, other states have got 66 and 106 pesticides that they can test for. And if they can figure it out, so can we. Our patients deserve better. Our patients deserve transparency. We deserve the right to know what is in our medicine on the retail shelves, because there are nefarious actions in addition to accidents, right? We all know that. So let's do something about it. And I think pre-packed is not okay. I forgot we were live. So I do not think pre-pack is okay. I think we're going to have issues not only with quality, but we're going to have issues with weight too. I have people already looking into things that are pre-packaged on the market, where they're going into dispensaries and they're purchasing it and they're weighing it right there on the certified scale. And an example, if you've got a 7-gram package and it comes out as 6.2, well, that's not okay. You know what I mean? The people pushing pre-pack, in my opinion, are the people that are going to make millions off of it. The people that are going to lose is going to be our mom and pops and the rest of us who are going to have to spend millions doing it, right? So that's my take on pre-pack. Let's see. The employee credentialing, so that is SB 758. In my opinion, I appreciate what you guys have done with getting the credentialing out there so that we have an identification of who's working in our industry and where. However, there needs to be training in this industry. And the reason why I say that is metric, okay? Metric, whenever you have access to metric, you are responsible for everything that is done in metric. Whether you are a bud tender or an owner, you are responsible. And that is a thing that I do not know that our industry is aware of. So thank you today.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Parker. Next, we have Ben Cortez.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for meeting with us all today, and thank you for letting us speak. I am a lab rat over at Metis QA. All of our other compatriots have already talked on the pesticide list, the instrumentation. The state lab has been touched on. Just listen to them, please. It's correct. Recently, a study was done by an organization where they sent dosed samples out to 24 labs. Of those 24 labs, 10 of us actually reported the correct values of things like heavy metals and pesticides. 14 of them passed them. So like the last lady said, people are getting poison product. It is affecting our customers. So we have to get that seen too. That cannot be. Greater than half of the labs are putting out poison. That can't be. As people will shift from pesticides, because these quantities are so low that any use is going to fail, more people are going to try and utilize a microbial aspect to get some of their yeasts and molds seen to. I would like for that to be adjusted to something similar of like 100,000, like what Florida does, or to just turn that to a tested and reported like New York does. That will allow them to use, like BT spray or trichoderma, some sort of beneficial pathogens or beneficial microbes that, produce an enzyme that will keep other pathogenic molds suppressed. Everything else was pretty much touched on. We do have to get rid of the bad actors in this industry. It's a safety issue. It's a huge safety issue. And that's all from me. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Cortez. And we have, it looks like our final person that signed in for comment is Kyle King.
Good morning, and thank you for your time. As many of you guys have heard, a lot of my friends have had many problems with the rulemaking process. And so I'd like to start with, let's talk about pre-pack. Let's talk about how that has specifically highlighted the bad actors in this industry. Because even though I'm a business owner, I'm a patient first. I have set up a facility that is ready to handle pre-pack, and I've talked to my friends in New York that have the capability of making biodegradable packaging that is breathable. However, I'd rather not make millions. I would rather advocate for my friends, my family, and myself, because my family has been in the cannabis industry since the 60s, and my grandmother inspired me to go to college to study cannabis, where in 2012 I went to the Nazareth College of Rochester to study environmental science, where I was trained by Dr. Brown and learned about the benefits of hemp and its bioremediation abilities. After that, because of regulation, I realized that, hey, this college isn't going to let me study cannabis. So I dropped out to become a chef because I understood that there's a parallel between agriculture and food safety, and that's where pre-pack comes into play. Food needs to be handled appropriately. Vegetables in a refrigerator need to be stored properly with FDA regulations. This remains true for cannabis because cannabis is an agricultural commodity. It is a consumable product that we consume. And as a chef, and in my 15 years of culinary training, as well as my studies and experience and my personal hobbies with plants and botany, and my passion that has been instilled to me by my family, I feel that pre-pack is a problem, as it highlights the bad actors that are making our jobs hard and your jobs hard. We need to stop fighting and stop battling each other as patients versus the state, patients versus the federal government, as this issue remains true not only in our state government, but in our federal government as well. The people like me and my friends who have been legacy operators for years suffer from what I call black market PTSD. We're afraid to come to our government because we're afraid to be prosecuted against. And this remains true for me. I've been trying to get a license in the state of Oklahoma so that I could pursue this research to help people, and I've only been suppressed, silenced, and people like to tell me that I'm crazy, There's people out there that are trying to claim that I'm on meth. No, I'm a high-functioning ADHD cancer patient, or not cancer patient, I'm sorry, cannabis patient, who has been self-medicating basically my entire life. I first started ingesting cannabis when I was 12 years old after at the University of Upstate Medical Center in Syracuse, New York, decided after they found out that I had a neurological disorder, they decided to keep me in their hospital and test me like a rat subject. I'm not a rat. I'm a patient. My family are not rats. My family are not drug dealers. My friends are not drug dealers. Thank you. That's really honestly all the time that I need. Thank you very much.
All right. So, okay, thank you all for attending. Public comment online is still open until 5 p.m. today. So if there's something that this meeting spurred in you, you have more comments to make, you can make them in writing online until 5 p.m. today. As I stated earlier, every single person who spoke today or submitted an online comment will receive feedback from us directly, and it'll be personalized feedback to your comment. So you will receive that. So make sure you all left your email addresses on here, and we'll utilize those. Thank you for being here, and we are adjourned.
Oh,